All right, it's 5 o'clock, and we're going to call this meeting to order. And we will start with roll call. And so I'm just going to go around the table. Brian Sylvia.
Here.
Luke Murray.
Here.
Bob Littlefield.
Here.
Jim Manny.
Here.
Brian Mahoney. Here. Terry Lynch.
Here.
And I am here, Kate Massananti. All righty, and we have a quorum. All right, so our second item, approving our meeting minutes. I got them up onto the drafts up onto SOS, but I did not distribute them, so we're going to table that for one more meeting, and we'll get those taken care of. I also need to clarify, I thought we had a number of meeting minutes that we had approved, and I thought were posted on Rhode Island Secretary of State, but we were checking today, and they are no longer there, so I want to look into that. There was about 10 of them, which I had gone through, and they were there, and now they seem to not be there, so we'll just need to double check going forward.
Yeah, I would just check with Terry on that, because she was posting all the meeting minutes recently.
Yeah,
Pretty much for the past,
like 2 months, right?
or more.
More, okay.
I'll just check with her.
So I know they had been up there, and now I don't know why they're not there, but we'll might have to go through a bunch, but we'll get them up. Review, discussion, action regarding public correspondence. I haven't received anything from the members of our community, but Phil had forwarded out to me just kind of a heads up where the Warwick School District had approved the $335 million bond for 2 high schools, and so I had forwarded that out to the group. There's not much to say about that other than it happened. And outside of that, I don't really have anything to talk to specifically when it comes to new business items for Chairperson's General Correspondence Ongoing Activities Report at this moment. It has been brought to my attention that Brian Sylvia will be stepping down from the secretary role, so I will call for nominations for secretary for the table. From the table, I will throw out there, Dave Palazzetti did express that he would be willing to take on the role if nobody else at the table would like it. So, so if someone can motion that, and then we can second.
I'll motion to nominate Dave Palazzetti as the secretary of the building committee.
I'll second the nomination.
All right, so Terry and Luke, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. He'll be excited. All right, so we want to keep this a nice and succinct meeting because people have some things that they need to get to. We do want to, however, reiterate to the community that this project is alive and well. The only difference being is the bond is not going to be voted on in November. So we do want to have an update regarding where our stage 2 submission is. We did receive a response, or Phil received our response from RIDE. Phil, if you want to, or the 2 of you together, that works. So we have Phil Conti from Studio Jade and Chris Spiegel from Left Field will give us our latest update on our stage 2 submission and our status.
Thank you for wearing a tie too. Kate always gives me a little bit for dressing up for this meeting. I'm not sure why.
Is that your monitor? Is that your screen?
That's definitely my monitor. Please don't judge me by my desktop. Yeah, hold on. That picture. It's from a Fish and Wildlife. We're doing some local Fish and Wildlife. Yeah, I was waiting for someone to comment about that. My shear drive is currently down. So I do it. It really should be. Okay. This is frustrating. Okay, I can do this without the slide. The slide just helps from a visual perspective, but. Yeah. It's not, like I said, I can walk everyone through it. It's just explaining the float that we have in the current schedule because of your early submission. So, essentially what I would like to discuss with this group is what the Rhode Island Necessity of Construction review application process looks like on a timeline, what the typical review process looks like on a timeline. So typically, a district would submit their stage 2 on September 15th. RIDE would generally take about 6 to 8 weeks to review that, or 6 weeks. Then they would come back and they would ask for supplemental information. Once you would be given about 2 or 3 weeks to complete that supplemental information, and then sometime in November, end of November, you would be submitting your complete package and getting sign-off from RIDE. Council on elementary and secondary education would not vote until December. So the milestone that you get at December is your memorandum of agreement. Essentially, that's what you're working towards. So you'll notice that a lot of those things, our stage 2 submission was submitted on July 21st. We received our supplemental response back on August 21st, and we've already submitted our supplemental response. Phil has already submitted that to RIDE. So essentially, we have about 8 weeks of float built into our current schedule because of the risk management exercise that you guys did, which was to submit the stage 2 far ahead of time in case there were any hiccups down the road. Well, we've now encountered one of those hiccups, and because you guys submitted so early and you've built so much time into your schedule, we essentially have about 8 weeks of float built into our schedule that will, so essentially we can take these next 4 to 6 weeks, however long is needed, to work with town council, to work with school committee, to come up with a solution that we're going to put on the ballot in November, and it will not affect in any way our ability to still achieve our December memorandum of agreement. So the point of me having that slide was to show you what a typical schedule was and how basically how far early we are, about 8 weeks of float built into our current schedule.
So when you use the word float, we all understand what you mean by that, but can you
Sure.
say it a little bit more?
I'll give it the least project management-y explanation. So float is essentially the time that you have between 2 tasks that you can spend without it affecting your final date on your project. So if you have 8 weeks of float, that means that you can take 8 weeks to kind of work around some things and it won't affect your final deadline, basically. That's how we use float in our business. Is we like to build float into things because everything takes a little bit longer than you expect it to. So we build float into schedules. In this case, you guys made the absolute right decision to submit far ahead of schedule because we already have our comments back. We already have submitted our responses to those comments. So everything has been reviewed at this point with the exception of the financing plan, which is what we're going to be working through with town council. At our next joint meeting, we're going to be discussing how to finance this project and what level to finance it at. Did that make sense? I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly.
Makes sense by me. Does anybody have any questions for Chris or any clarifying statements?
So my only clarifying statement is that what I'm trying to explain to you, the bottom line is the project is still well on track. There is no threat to our schedule right now whatsoever. As long as we continue on this path of having this meeting on the 24th, getting things figured out soon after, then we are still in a great shape to get our MOA in December.
Sounds good. Any questions for left field? Statements, concerns?
I just have one. Chris, what's our drop dead, in your opinion, deadline when we need to make a financial decision before we get pushed on the decision for the state?
Before Thanksgiving. Before Thanksgiving, for sure, yeah.
All right.
Listen, like I said, you've seen all the stage 2s that were submitted. Warwick submitted $350 million. Barrington has submitted East Greenwich is submitting. They've got a ton of stuff that they have to get through. It was very smart of this group to send it in so far ahead of schedule because it's already been reviewed. All they're waiting for is to see the financing plan, to see if you guys are going to go for 125 or going to go for 150. That's all they're waiting for. And I did have a phone call with Mario about this today.
So we also had a piece of correspondence, I believe, Luke, it was between you and Mario, about him basically saying that they were going to be holding on our application before making any sort of final decisions until our town council makes a decision about financing. So I wanted to also make sure that we brought that out and that, full transparency where we're at, the communication that has come in to us. And it sounds to me, just what Chris is saying, that's okay.
So yeah, it's like I said, they've already done the review, they've already sent us back their comments with it, we've already responded to their comments. They're just waiting for a financing plan now. And whether we decide to go with 125, then we say, well, the financing plan that we already have in there is the one that we're going with, or if we decide to go to a higher number, then we just resubmit the financing plan.
All right. No other questions then?
Okay.
So just adding on to what Chris said, so in anticipation of revising a financing plan if necessary, we've gone ahead and started that so that we'll be prepared to submit that after the town council has decided the bonding amount. And over the last couple of weeks, we have looked at the floor plan to see where we could recognize some efficiencies in planning. And we're working towards reducing that square footage. So what I would like to develop before meeting with the council is a revised floor plan for review and comment so that we can have the most productive discussion with town council relative to the building size. We want to identify again what is the allowable square footage amount, which I believe might have been around 156 or something like that. Our stage 2, which was around 150, 153. We're revising that to see what compromises would need to be considered to get it down to like 142 or something like that. So that's what we're working on. And we want to get that out to you before, and the town council, before the meeting on the 25th. Oh, 24th, I'm sorry, 24th.
I think too, after listening to town council the other day, something that I'd personally like to direct you guys towards is, and I know you had brought this to us before, with the cost comparison of if we're stuck, not stuck, but if we keep the current high school online from a utilities perspective, what we're looking at year-over-year cost, which, will be variable with rates, but if we, just to show that comparison of what a new building costs and maintenance, if we can update those numbers with the plan, I think that would be a piece of data that all the groups will be really interested in, from an operating perspective, if it costs us X right now to run the high school, what the difference would be. I know
Sure.
you talked to about putting AC in the new high school, and that we'd be at a huge reduction in electric cost, even just in fuel cost, compared to where we are now with the 240,000.
So I have that information. I'll share it with Left Field and put those numbers together.
We would like, as a group, we would like, as your OPM and designer, we would like to have another meeting. Prior to that meeting, we'd like to discuss not only that, but we would like to discuss project delivery options for this project. We believe that there is a path forward to getting a construction manager and a designer on very, very quickly. And if the town council, the SBC accepts that role, we need to talk about how we could potentially fund that before a bond vote. But there are advantages to that in terms of having real numbers prior to a bond vote in September that are coming from a construction manager, the people that are going to be building it, as opposed to, architects and engineers and third-party cost estimators and things like that. It's always good to go out to the actual trades themselves and say, HVAC guy, what do you charge for this? And to get a full number on board. So we'd like to discuss project delivery mechanisms with this group prior to that meeting as well.
The other thing that I'm curious, and I would actually like to hear from folks at the table, Terry, you in particular, when it comes to the athletic field, outside of the financial decision, but it would be a financial impact decision. When it comes to the field itself, there is a lot of discussion right now throughout athletics, from high school, college, NFL, about turf versus natural because of the wear and tear on our athletes' bodies. Seeing many young kids having incredible injuries on their knees when they play on turf. I know there's a lot of studies happening right now as to which direction to go in, and some communities are actually role reversing as to whether or not they want turf or natural grass. And I've kind of chit-chatted a little bit offline with Phil and Chris about maybe we should be looking at that and saying, right now we've been gung-ho for turf, but if what's best for our athletes might actually be natural, and bonus, it's cheaper. Maybe that is an area where we can explore with Phil and Chris and look at the cost reduction for that.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. The turf, obviously, everybody around here knows we can play a lot more on it. But the grass is, and those conversations are being had throughout college football, the NFL, and on the NFHS level too. So I think you might see a little bit of going backwards, if you will, going back to the natural grass. So if that's something that we have to do to help this project along, we can do that. And if it helps it, that's tremendous. We can get by with grass. Yep. Obviously, the turf would help and be a lot more. We can play a lot more sports on that, but the grass has been good to us.
Yep. Okay. And then the other component, and Chip unfortunately is not here, but something to be looked at when you're doing your number crunching is what we're right now shooting for the auditorium, the 1,000 seat, and maybe we need to start looking at, well, what does 900 look like? What does 850 look like? The community would love nothing more than to maintain the 1,000. However, if we're looking at a difference between 125 million and 150 million, and if there's going to be a deal breaker in there, we need to start looking at different options and iterations for that too, to see what that looks like.
I think our auditorium now is 775.
I want a clarification on that, though. I don't think we designed it for 1,000, right? If I remember, it was for the student body, so it was around 700-ish.
We were at 800 in
800?
the stage 2, yeah.
All right, okay.
Still a very big auditorium.
I always had that 1,000
Yeah.
in my mind too.
Yeah. So, but again, just looking at all the different areas where we can start trimming. Because we want to work together. We want to be, we want to kind of all come to the table with something. So, does anybody have any other questions about where we are with the stage 2? Any comments, concerns? The current status of bond referendum process and where we are now with the project, these kind of coincide. As everybody knows, the town council voted to pause the vote. And now we're looking to meet as a whole group between town council, school committee, and this body, along with Left Field and Studio Jade, on October 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. here in council chambers, to just have a more robust discussion about what this is going to look like going forward, and talk finances. Yeah,
Could I say something on that meeting?
please do.
So that council meeting last week, I don't want anyone to read into anything what the council's saying, and the superintendent and I have talked about this, but I think the conversation you're having about cost savings, especially some of these big ticket items, like with turf versus grass, auditorium sizes, I think these are the discussions that are going to be very constructive, and I think the School committee and the town council are really going to embrace that both. They, you know, this town, and I'm a resident, so I'll speak as a resident, not the town manager. We all know we need a new school. It's how do we get there? And how do we do it to afford it for all the taxpayers in this town? There's 31,000 people here. $125 million is a big number to this town. We've never had that kind of debt, and $150 million is even bigger debt. So that is what the conversation is, to make sure that we meet all the needs of our students in this town and our residents at an affordable cost to everyone. So I appreciate you bringing that up. We're all looking forward to this meeting. And as we all know, anyone that's been here for the past year and change, I gave the superintendent a list of, I think, 5 questions that the council wants to look at. They want to look at the number of students, the number of FTEs, what is the fund balance? What could the schools, is there any money left for this? I don't want anyone to read into that either. These are questions they've asked for over a year that they never got the answers. So, and you and I both on the same wavelength, right? Transparency is everything. So the numbers speak for themselves. Give it to the council, and I'm sure, I'm really hopeful that meeting on the 24th is going to be a really productive meeting, something we're all looking forward to.
Bob, do you want, have anything?
No, I would say Jim and I spoke this week, talking about preparations in anticipation of the meeting on the 24th. We got some questions that they'd like to see answers to. We have a plan that we'd like to present to school committee at our next meeting on the 10th.
Okay.
So that I met with my finance team this morning, and we're all working on it. But one of the things that I emphasized is that transparency and cooperation are our 2 most important core values here. Yeah, we will have information. I don't want. I want to establish clarity with the town council, and I don't want them to have any questions about what's going on in the school department.
Perfect. All right. Any, good?
I was just saying from a school building committee level, things we can do, you know, and this has come up before, but we never seem to kind of calc stuff out, but it will come up, like, what are the long-term utility savings? What are the energy savings of a new building versus existing? And some of that stuff we haven't really dug down deep in the previous process, but it might be a good time over the next month to start digging a little further. And like, what are the long-term savings that we can expect, in addition to other things going on in the school department, right? So those are things that we're building in, we've talked to. Also, any empirical data from RIDE that you can get about CTE coming back to the schools when these new schools are built. There's several new schools that have been built now, and is there any data that's showing, hey, 25% of those kids are now coming back into the programs? Because I think that's another thing. There's a $5 million upwards close to that we can't seem to pinpoint. It's talked about generally, but saving $1 million of students staying here, but that has to be rooted in some sort of data, right? It can't just be thrown out there like, oh, well, I think we'll get
I understand.
back, right?
So I understand. I think it would be we could probably get a very quick turnaround from RIDE to see, for school districts that have built a new school, what amount of money have they been spending prior sending kids out of district to CTE schools, and how much they've been able to keep in. I did some looking at this very briefly. I haven't calced it out yet, but you guys are 4th in the state in your spending, and the other school districts are much bigger than you. Pawtucket, Providence, Warwick. You guys are 4th in the state for sending kids out of district. So that's $4 million, I believe, $4 million a year that gets spent going to other districts. So we will get a calc from RIDE to hopefully see how much of that $4 million you guys could expect back by keeping kids in district.
Well, and I think it's also key to say that it would be less kids leaving versus bringing kids back, because no one's coming back, right? They're established where they are, and by the time this is built, they'll be graduated and gone. So the key is keeping the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders where they are, and then having a place for them a beautiful place for them to land, instead of paying, we discussed it in our last school committee meeting. We just approved $1 million point whatever, just, for tuition for kids going to another school. Like, why are they leaving? So those kids not coming back, but they're, the kids below them maybe won't follow suit, so.
I'm sure.
There's the other part of the equation, that you build a facility that can support, like 20, it's become a cliche now, 21st century CTE programs, that not only will you keep kids in our district, but you'll attract other kids to come to us because they want to be a part of this 21st century program. But it's a reality that you've got to have the facility in order to pull that off.
Right.
I'm going to top your cliche with one of my own, which is, if you build it, they will come. I mean, you see it. East Providence High School is a perfect example of that. Kids from all over go to East Providence High School because they've got, I would wager, some of the most advanced CTE programs in the state. They have, there's an ambulance inside that school where you can take EMT training. It's a fitted out ambulance. They've done some cool stuff, and kids and their parents, more specifically, want to make sure their kids have a career after school, and they'll send them to schools that do it.
All right. Anyone else? All right, and then our last topic, Chris, I know your team has been working diligently on updating our new building project website, www.skschoolproject.com.
It is up. You can check it from your phones right now. We are going to be continuing to add in the financial data as it becomes available. Right now, we have a link to what has been presented publicly. It is right now, it's very simple. It says what the project is, what the project, in its current form, what the project is, what the project will cost, what your ride reimbursement rate. It's very, very simple and straightforward. And for those that are looking to maybe dive deeper into questions, there's a pretty thoughtful FAQ section. But I would ask, this committee to keep your ears to the ground. If you hear a question getting asked, let us know so we can put it right up on the FAQ. Because if someone's asking you, there's 20 other people that have the same question. So we want to make sure that, people are getting their information directly from the website in terms of, real facts about what the project is and what it isn't.
Great. And one thing I want to make sure we do is get links to a link from the current South Kingstown SBC site to forward to this, and then make sure that we have links referring to our YouTube channel and meeting minutes, things like that. And again, that stuff, it all lives it already lives on YouTube, and it lives on Rhode Island Secretary of State, but just making an easy way for.
Yeah, I would recommend this. It's definitely a growing, it's an iterative process, right? So we've got to, we took a step back from what we first showed you guys, which was a lot more detailed. We said, this most recent town council meeting, let's just put out the very basics in an FAQ. So that's what we did. And, once I think we get a better idea of the financing plan and things like that, and then where we're going, we add more information on as the project gets closer. So we know for a lot of people, that article in The Independent a couple weeks ago was probably the first time they've heard about this project. And we want them to be able to understand the very basics about what you guys have been doing for the last year and a half.
There's a lot of legacy data on the current town site, so maybe what I'd recommend is I can put the link to the new site, kind of put an end date on when we're going to take down the current site, so they can still access some of the documents that are housed on there. But at some point, and I'll go off your lead, I'd like to just have a redirect link alone.
There should be a
Unless
reader.
you want to just do
Yeah,
that
I would.
alone now.
So we've got all of your files. We actually had a documents tab. I'm not sure if every single one was uploaded yet that you had on that site. So why don't I check with my team? But my recommendation would be to keep the link and give it a countdown or something. This website will go offline, in 20 days or something like that.
Then just make sure that whatever is there gets ported over.
And so I believe everything that was on the website, we already have in our documents tab.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know if you still have, if you posted that yet. So
Yeah, we haven't posted that yet.
it'll take a little time to make the transition. The other thing that goes along with this is the communication. Right now, I'm getting any of the emails for the SBC. I'm assuming we want to transfer that over to you. So that email address, which you have established.
It's, yeah, skschoolproject@gmail.com.
So I'll
right there on-
revise that as well,
Yep.
so that way any of those emails get pushed your way.
Perfect.
I checked right before, we had no correspondence as of this morning, but this might be, again, the first time a lot of people are hearing about the website going live, too. So.
Anybody else? All right, there's no public comment, as there are no public members here. Scheduling of the next meeting, so I heard Chris mention that we should probably look to have a meeting prior to the October 24th large meeting so that we can vet some things out. I'm happy to get something on the books. I do know that one of the biggest struggles as to why our meeting is pushed out to the week of the 23rd is coordinating schedules of various, myself included, of various committee members. Do you guys have, Chris and Phil, do you guys have a idea of how?
I think the 12th, I think would probably be a good date. You've asked us for a couple more deliverables that are going to take some time today in terms of, we'd like to see if we can get that data from RIDE about matriculation rates, pre and post construction, things like that, so.
Okay. That particular week, I'm not in Rhode Island, so either someone can.
Neither am I.
And you're not either?
Not
Okay.
either, no.
So would the week of the 16th work for folks?
Yes.
So that would be actually it would be the 19th is the Thursday. Is that possible for at least a quorum?
So the only day that I cannot do would be the 5th, and that's because I have to go to my own town school building committee and make my own comments to that committee.
I'm out the 16th to the 20th. I mean, I'm not saying cancel a meeting.
Oh, yeah,
because
yep.
I'm out of state that week.
Okay. Do we have the majority at the table? Can you do the 19th?
Yes.
Luke? Terry?
It's a senior night for soccer, but I'll make arrangements to get here.
Okay. And then Brian, you're good. And Chip is probably going to be in the same situation with you with the senior night? Okay.
Showcase for the senior night. Oh, that's right. The 19th. If we would have the meeting at 4, Phil and I could get over to the showcase.
Folks, are you good with 4? Bob, are you good with 4?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do 4 o'clock on the 19th. Thank you. And that way we can, you guys are already down anyway, so that'll be good. All right, so October 19th at 4 o'clock here. And then that is a prep meeting for the 24th. Any other agenda item topics that people would like for me to slot for that, you can either bring them up to me right now or you can email me those at a later date. All right. So unless anybody has anything else they want to chime in with, leave the pregnant pause there. No. All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:34.
I'm sorry. Did you make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you.